Hello children, welcome to this session where I'm going to tell you about determiners. Let's have a quick review of what determiners are. Determiners are words that come at the beginning of the noun. They introduce the noun, and determiners, they determine the noun or they talk about the noun. Determiners further tell us whether a noun is specific or it's general. When we talk about it comes at the beginning of a noun, in a sentence where we have the subject, it comes just before that. It talks about the noun. That means it introduces us to the noun. Determines the noun. That means it talks about what the noun is all about. It also tells us whether a noun is specific or it's general. Let's go further and see what are the different categories which fall under the determiners. Let us begin with determiners in the center and the different categories which fall under determiners. The first and the foremost are articles, which has a, an or the. Right? I'll be describing each one of them separately to you all. The second one is demonstratives. It is demon. It's called demonstratives. And demonstratives has basically four of these: this, that, these, those. Okay, these are the four parts of demonstratives. Further, we have possessives. They are called possessives. As the name says, it tells us the possession of some noun. For example, my, yours, let's say our, we have her, we have his, we have their, and so on, so forth. Our next category is the distributives. As the name suggests, it talks about the distribution of the noun. For example, we have each, every, either, neither. It talks about individually how many are those, or it tells us if we are talking about a group of nouns together or individually every part of that group there. Lastly, which we'll be doing for your class, are quantitatives. Quantifiers, in fact, they are called quantifiers. Now what do well, I have put up the incorrect spelling. I missed out the A here. Quantifiers, Q-U-A-N-T-I. Quantifiers, basically it has some, few, then you have a few, little, a little. So I'm just putting up few, little, more, many. Right, so plenty of these individually examples are there, but we will be doing each one of them separately. Now we will be picking up the first one which we just saw, articles. As you already know what articles are, a, an and the. The first basic point that we have to see in this is that this is a determiner which, this is a determiner which determines the noun, which determines the noun, the speaker, which the speaker is referring to or which the speaker is talking about. Okay, here for example we have let's say indefinite article. There are basically two different kinds of articles which we've done. One is the indefinite article, and the other one is our definite article. I'll tell you the difference between both. Indefinite, where we are not very sure of that article, some noun which is we are not very clear about it. It can be anything. Or an is used where it is a definite thing, where it is a definite noun, and we are very sure which one is being used, so we use the here. Now the difference, and in the examples that I'll be giving you, the concept will be even more clear to you. Let's have a quick example for this one. The first one, which I've just mentioned, are indefinite article. I'm just putting up the short form here. The indefinite article which had a or an. For example, if I give you, a book is man's best friend. Okay. And another one which I give you, another example. This can be an example of a definite article. A definite article here. The Bhagavad Gita. Let's say, okay, the Bhagavad Gita is a holy book. Is a holy book. See the difference between both. Here we have a book. It can be any book that we are referring to. A book is man's best friend. But on the other hand, in the second sentence, if you see, we have the Bhagavad Gita. Specifically, we are talking about which book? The Bhagavad Gita. When we specifically talk about some specific book or something very particular which we are talking about, that becomes our and in a definite article where we are sure to use this here. Right, let's move further. Proceeding further, we will be talking about demonstratives. Where I had told you, we basically have this, that, these, and those. These are the four basic demonstratives which tell us more about the noun. For example, we can take up, well, let me tell you, demonstrative pronouns are used as determiners. They are used to point something specific within a sentence. When we talk about something, like when we're talking about in a sentence, like this particular thing is being talked about, or this boy, or that place, when we are talking about something like that. When something specific is demonstrated or shown, this kind of a determiner is used. Let's see, for example, the first one. They are, well, let me put it the other way around. One example, like, I want to go to that cinema. To that, or let's put it as the movie. I want to go to that movie. Here we have the word that. Another example. He wanted those books. You see, we are talking about specifically this noun. Movie, which movie? That movie. It is demonstrating that movie. Book, he wanted those books there. He wanted those books. right? So here it is showing us the demonstratives or the specific kind of noun which is required. This is called the demonstrative, and they are used here as determiners where they are talking about the noun. The next thing that we are going to pick up are quantifiers. Or before that, let us pick up possessives. For possessives, if you remember, it shows possession, my, your, our, their, etc. Okay, there are plenty of those which are there, which shows us the possession of the noun. See, what are these determiners doing? They're talking about the noun. They're telling us more about the nouns only. They're determining, they're mentioning more what kind of a thing the subject is all about. It is somebody's, it belongs to somebody. Then we are talking about possessive determiners. We use them there. For example, if I put up a sentence which says, where is your bike? Where is your bike? Of course, it's a question, so a question mark will be there. And this is the noun. So what are we talking about the noun? Whose bike is it? So where? This is yours bike. Okay, where is your bike? This is the possession of the noun it is talking about. So it's determining the possession of the noun. Here, your is a possessive determiner. Yet another example. It's our secret game. Now there is some secret game that you children play, and it's your secret game. So you've mentioned there, it's our secret game. So what do possessive pronouns do? They at times are used as determiners, and they are words that are used to show the ownership of the noun. That mentions about the ownership, whose noun, whose it belongs to. Okay, let's go to our next one, which talks about quantifiers. If you remember, when I just began this session, and for quantifiers I told you about some, many, then we had much, little, few, and so on so forth, just like that. Before I go ahead with these in detail, let me tell you, when we talk about much and many, you come across sentences where you have a lot of confusion between which one to put, much or many. Well, many is countable, much is not so countable. You cannot count the quantity. There is so much of noise. You cannot count the noise. But there are many children. There are so much of children? No, absolutely wrong. There are so many children because you can count the number of children, right? And much is the quantity which you cannot count. Now let's similar thing with little and little few. There are few children in the classroom. When we mention about few children, that means we can count those children. Whereas little children, no, little children here means small children, but we are talking about the number of children. In that case, there is little milk in the glass. There is few milk in the glass? No. Few and like much and few, these can be counted. Okay, much and little cannot be counted. Get this concept very clear into your heads, children. Much and little are the words which cannot be counted. Something of the noun which cannot be counted. Whereas many and few, these are the nouns which can be counted. Right. Let me go further and tell you what is the difference between, at times you come across, there is little, a little, and the little. Like we have, let's begin with little, then we have a little, we further have the little. Right. Now, when do we use these separately? What is the difference between the three of them? We've just begun with, when we began with the determiners, and we were talking about the articles. There we had used a, an, and the as indefinite or definite articles, where we are sure about the thing, where the thing is confirmed, the noun is confirmed, we know which noun we are talking about. We use a definite article, the. But in case we do not know which noun we are talking about, or any specific noun that we are talking about, in that case we use a or an. Now here in this case, when we have just mentioned little, when we have mentioned just little, it means that there is hardly any. There is not much of the thing there. But at the same time, when we use little, that means there is something. So this is something positive which is there. This is negative, hardly any. There is not much. There's hardly anything there. Then here being a little, that means there is something there. Some little thing is mentioned about. Something is there. And the little, when we talk about, when we are talking about something specific, which is already there. Like if I talk about, there were very little, let's take, there were little amount of sugar was there. There was little sugar in the cup. That means hardly any. There wasn't much sugar there. But if we talk about there was a little sugar in my tea, that means there was sugar, but it was a little comparatively little less. And the little, when we know it is a specific one, the little sugar you gave in the tea was absolutely fine for me. Means whatever exact was there, we are talking about only that. It was little, but we are talking about only that. Now this was something for the which we cannot count, uncountable things. We use similar things like for countable, we use few, we use a few, and we use the few for the things which we can count. Right? So here we say that quantifiers, they indicate how much or how little of the noun is being discussed. Right? So again, it is talking about the noun, whether it is a little amount of noun, or there is excess, or there are many nouns that we are talking about. So it talks about the noun. It specifies how much or how little of the noun is being discussed. Further, we do our last one, which I had mentioned to you before. That was again distributives. Okay, as the word says, we had picked up each, every, either, either and neither. Okay, similarly, you can also have all, both. These are talking about all distributions, further distributions there. Next, when we come to the example of these, let me just tell you. First of all, distributives, they give us the information about a group or every individual of the group. It can be every person of the group, or we can talk about the group as a whole. Right? Let's say, for example, it is going to be very clear to you. The first one, every child was laughing. Okay, let's take another example and see. He got, either of us will go. Either of us will go to the zoo. Now, as a whole, we are talking every child. Now, in the class or somewhere there, every child was laughing there, right? Now, when we talk about every child laughing, individually, every person, the distribution has been given there. Suppose I give you an example of, I distributed the sweets to every child. Now what is happening here? I'm distributing to each one of them, right? So every person or every individual, when they are discussed or when the noun about them is being told, it comes to a distributive which is talked about, the individual part of a group or something like that. A group or each member of the group is being discussed. So children, I hope you are very clear with the concept of determiners. With the help of different kind of determiners together, we can talk about more about the nouns. We can talk about the number of quantity of the noun there. We can talk about the possession of the noun. We can also talk whether the noun is specific or it's in general, right? I hope the concept of determiners is very clear with you. Thank you, children.